Hello, everyone. Welcome to our online video series, Reading, Hope, and Trying Times. Our guest today is our good friend, Sarah Rubio. Sarah is an editor of children's books at Tyndale House Publishers and the author of the picture book, Far From Home, a story of loss, refuge, and hope. She grew up as a missionary kid in Ecuador and graduated from Wheaton College in 2006. She's been an avid reader ever since she convinced her mom to teach her to read before kindergarten teacher got around to it. She joined Tyndale's editorial team in 2007, working mainly on Spanish books until transitioning to English nonfiction and children's in 2014. One of the first Tyndale products she encountered was a one-year Bible that her father read with her every year from the age of 8 to 18. Sarah loves challenging authors to be better writers while they're challenging her with the ideas in her book. Her favorite books are the ones that give readers a window into a new world, a different culture, a magical universe, an obscure branch of science, a new idea, or an old idea presented in a new way. Sarah's married to her high school sweetheart and is the proud mom of two handsome boys. I'm also happy to say that Sarah has been a featured speaker at several of our conferences. So welcome, Sarah. It's great to have you with us here today.
Thanks, Brian. I'm happy to be here.
So maybe we can start out by just having you share your thoughts on the whole health crisis and how that's impacted you. What other reflections that you have on what we're going through?
Sure, yeah. It's hard to believe it's been almost 2 months that we've been under shelter-in-place order here in Illinois, as many people have been under different kinds of restrictions. I guess I just, the first time that I realized that this was going to be something that was really going to touch our daily lives, I remember we went to a science fair at my son's school, and and at that point people had kind of been talking about the virus, but it still, at least to me, seemed kind of like a far off thing. And then I took the boys out to McDonald's after the science fair to celebrate their accomplishments, and the restaurant was just really empty, and it was just such a different experience. We ordered, and then the employee came over and immediately sanitized, the touch screen we had used. And as we were sitting there, the governor, the TV screen showed the governor announcing that schools would be closed for the next 2 weeks. So that ended up being, the last school event we went to that year. And, we were thinking, of course, it was, schools would be closed for 2 weeks, and then it was, they're going to be closed for, another 2 weeks, and then, a month, and then, to the end of the school year. And that was just, so basically overnight, our family routine changed. Instead of dropping the kids off every morning, to be educated and loved by their teachers and their friends, they were just staying with us. All of a sudden, instead of going into the office for part of the week, as I normally do, I was at home all the time. My husband's business kind of just came to a standstill for a while. He put his continuous learning, a master's degree, on hold so that he could help the kids out with their school. And all of a sudden we were just trying to figure out, how do we help them learn, how do we help them process, how do we process what we're feeling and what we're experiencing and what we've lost. And I think just the hardest thing is we've kind of lost that illusion of control that we have over what we're going to do tomorrow, or what we're going to do next week. And that was kind of the thing that really stood out to me, was all of a sudden we have today, like we have our plans for today, and that's really it. We don't know what's happening tomorrow. We don't know what will happen a month from now, what things will be like and what we'll be able to do. And I love living in the future. I'm a real future looker, and that was really challenging for me to just, all of a sudden, it felt like the future was sort of closed. It felt like a curtain had just sort of come down, and today is all I get.
Yeah, I think it's pretty tough for any of us to know what next week or next month or even next year is going to look like.
For sure.
At this point. And I know myself, I kind of had a mental model when this first started happening, but that's been blown through the roof,
Yeah.
time and time again. So it's very difficult to predict.
Yeah.
So how do you feel the importance of like reading to your kids might be during this time?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, we've definitely seen a lot of people really responding, to to children's books. Obviously, a lot of parents were kind of scrambling for resources, things to do with kids at home. What do I do? How do I help my kids process, what they may be feeling or what they may be thinking about? And I'd like to, I remember like when I had Gabriel, my first son, and, kind of coming home from the hospital with this little baby, and I felt like I had, been taken all apart and put back together wrong. It was like, who am I now? So much of what you're doing every day is different. And, of course, your body's been through this kind of traumatic experience. And for me then, kind of finding a few minutes to pick up the novel that I'd been reading before kind of helped remind me, who I was and what my life was. And I think that can be a comforting experience, just to read, the familiar books, the favorites that you always have. And it can be comforting too, or helpful to read, books that help, where the characters are kind of going through big feelings, or whether they're sort of reacting in a different way. And there are a lot of, fun kids books with, the characters kind of going through something or processing something or, behaving badly. Even that can be, it can be helpful to just kind of talk about that and sort of talk through, well, why do you think that they responded that way? Or why do you think that they, what do you think they were feeling? And, do you ever feel that way? And even just, like the funny books and the silly books, it's just nice to, sit down and just, just laugh together and just, have a time to be silly. And I think that, books are such an important part of a family routine for many families, bedtime stories or, whatever your read aloud time looks like. And it's just, I think that's really important. I think it's important for kids and for parents and for families to kind of sit down together and have that time.
So as I mentioned in the introduction, you work at Tyndale House
Hmm.
and in the children's book area, but obviously Tyndale does many more things besides that. Kind of how has all of this affected you guys there?
Sure. Well, obviously, Amazon is one of our big customers, the big distributors of our products. And there was at first, Amazon really pivoted towards, acquiring and distributing different products right at the beginning. A lot of people were turning to Amazon for, necessities. And so they kind of, they were not picking up book orders for a time. It seems like they have normalized that a little bit. So we are seeing orders come in from Amazon. So at first it was, really dropped off, and now it's kind of bounced back a bit. So, I mean, of course, people are experiencing, different, just differences in, how quickly you get things like that. But, even when Amazon kind of dropped off, there were other options for distribution. So, we have seen, and then we've really seen, kind of like I mentioned, across the industry as a whole, people are, we're seeing strong sales in children's products and things like activity books, and things that are, educational or, things that kids can do either with their parents or on their own as they're spending a lot more time at home and kind of don't have access to their normal activities.
Well, it's good to hear that book sales are doing well and children's books in
Mhm.
particular are doing well.
Yeah. I mean, we'll see, we'll see how. I think it's a little too early to tell what the trends will be and what the impact will be overall, but, we'll see how. I think every publisher did, experience, um, you know, has been affected in some way, um, negatively in terms of sales. And, we'll see if that gets made up in other areas or not.
So I know we're still in the middle of the whole pandemic, but do you have any reflections on, what impact this is going to have on our society and our faith?
Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting that, church has kind of become really accessible, and kind of, we just now have access to all churches everywhere. My family, we've been sort of, virtually visiting a church in Bogota, Colombia, which is where my husband's from and where my husband's sister currently attends. And, we've been meaning to visit that church whenever we go, and never got around to it in person. And now we've been sort of visiting them online, and that's been fun. And I've heard, reports of people getting big, big attendance virtually at different churches. So, yeah, I guess we'll see if people are, I think it's definitely, a lot less sort of risky, or requires a lot less investment to visit a church, on YouTube than it does to kind of go up and actually show up. So, that may be people who have thought, hey, maybe that's something I'll check out. Now it's the easiest thing in the world for them to kind of see what the church is about. So I think that's a positive thing. My mom was talking to me about how at her church, they have, some elderly or sick members who have been shut-ins and who haven't been able to come to church. And, they've been loving the online services that they've been able to kind of experience church. And so they're thinking their restrictions have actually been lifted where she lives, so that they'll be able to start meeting next weekend, but they're hoping to continue the online thing for their people who aren't able to come in. I just think that there's a lot, or that people have become aware of a lot of resources that are now out there. I think that a lot of ministries, a lot of organizations have been, really working to get resources out there, to get content out there for people who are interested. And, yeah, I think that definitely when you realize, that how little control we have over our lives, I think that it is, kind of our tendency to maybe look to like, well, who can we trust? I think people are kind of feeling that maybe a lot of the systems that we have trusted in, or that we have in place, are not as trustworthy, or not as reliable as we've thought. And I think that, whenever your life changes completely, you do kind of tend to ask those bigger questions of, who can I count on, and who can I, where can I look for meaning, or for, a sense of security, or a sense of purpose. Where do I go with these questions, and where do I even go for comfort, or for, a hand to hold? And I think that those resources are more available than ever for people who are asking those questions.
It's kind of amazing, isn't it, how, some think that's overall a tragedy, actually causes some good byproducts.
Yeah. I think that that's kind of that's been our story. I think if, you look at the Bible and how, God brings redemption and brings, new life out of what seems to be dead, or what seems to be, terrible. That's the Easter story, right? It's, the conquering of death. And, I think that's more important than ever for Christians to remember, that we are a people of hope. We are a people of resurrection, of, rebirth and renewal. And our hope is not in, in what we see. Our hope is not in what we see around us here on earth, but, it's in something far greater and far truer and far stronger, than anything that we've set up to make us feel safe here.
Well said. So one of the things we've been talking about in this series is how God supported us in challenging times in the past. So is there anything that you'd like to share on that front?
Yeah, I think for me, it's just been, like I mentioned, just really focusing on each day. And, that's really all that we've ever had is the present. We were never promised, any kind of knowledge about the future, or control over it. And, I think it's, it's just been really helpful for me to, some days I wake up and I just think, oh, here we go again, the same routine, the same, small four walls closing in, got to get through what I got to get through today. And, but there's also a lot of grace and just looking at the small things and, looking for the things to be grateful for in just daily life. And I've really noticed the beauty of, just being here present, with my family, of, having what we need each day, of seeing God's provision, moment by moment, and just being able to kind of rest in, just in the present and just to be present for what's happening right now. And kind of, so my supervisor at the beginning of this really encouraged us all to read the Psalms. The Psalms cover the entire gamut of emotions. And so I kind of been starting at a different point, just kind of, I'll kind of start with a Psalm that I know really well and then just kind of listen. I usually listen to an audio Bible from there. And, just whenever I feel kind of overwhelmed or, anxious or, I just kind of pray, like, help me do the next thing, help me do, help me get through today. And I think also I've been learning to kind of simultaneously, hold grief and gratitude, and hold, the knowledge of my own neediness, along with the knowledge of God's sufficiency. So I think those are things that I've really been thinking about.
So in addition to the Bible, let's talk about other resources, things that we can draw on now. I know you've written a new book,
Yeah.
family prayer book. I'd love to hear more about that.
Sure. Yeah. So that was, kind of just as I was thinking through all the things that I was just talking about of, feeling, our daily, moment by moment need for God's support and God's provision, and thinking about, what are the things that I want to be thinking about? What are the things that I want, to want my kids to be thinking about? What are the things that we should focus on as a family? Kind of just this little prayer came to me of just really focusing on, gratitude for the things that God gives us, and, focusing on our dependence on him, and, asking him to give us what we need, asking him, not only for our own needs, but for the needs of our friends and our family and our world. So I just kind of wrote this little prayer, and I was thinking like, oh, it'd be great to, offer this to people, to other families, as maybe a source of comfort, or, sort of a tool to pray through, with their kids. And, I work in, kids publishing, and I know that, a picture book generally takes, a year and a half to 2 years to get out there. And I was like, well, that's not going to work. So, I just sent it to my agent, and I said, hey, what do you think, what do you think would be the best way to get this out there? I could just give it as a download or whatever. And, I'm represented by Credo Communications, and they have sort of a little publishing arm. And so Tim Beals, who's the president, got in touch with me, and we kind of put it together, this ebook, in a few weeks. And it's actually illustrated by my two sons, and my friend Jackie Nunez, who's an art director at Tyndale, helped pull it together so that their drawings look cool. And so she did a bunch of the design, and then Tim helped me get it out. So now it's available on Amazon. So yeah, definitely a really different publishing experience than with my first book, Far From Home, which was like over 3 years from writing to publication. So
that's a very cool experience, though. I'm really glad that you were able to pull that together and make it happen.
Yeah, it's really, I mean, it's crazy that I think it's really crazy being a creative at this time, because on the one hand, there's this pressure to kind of take advantage of or capitalize the situation in some way, and not just, financially or by building your platform, but just, I think, to make some sense and meaning. And we're seeing, I mean, I feel like I'm bombarded with content all the time, especially for kids. Everyone, every creative is kind of out there doing something online, doing online story time, or doing, drawing lessons or whatever. And I mean, I've, really stopped even looking at most of it, because I feel like, we have enough to do during the day. Maybe we'll look at that during summer break or something. But So I feel like on the one hand, there's kind of a pressure to be like, ooh, create, you're sitting at home, so you should be making all this, wonderful, meaningful stuff, and, kind of taking advantage of this situation. And on the other hand, there's, I think, a temptation to kind of put the brakes on and be like, well, when this is over, then I'll get back to a creative practice or a writing life or whatever. And I think that for me, I've been trying to find the balance between those things of, releasing myself from the pressure to, make the most of whatever this opportunity is. But at the same time to realize, this is my life now, this is normal for now. We don't know how long this is going to be the case. But, I can't just put everything on hold. I can't just say, well, I'll do that, when this is over, because we don't know when this is going to be over, and we don't know, what things will look like when it is. So, I've just been trying to, build my practice for now. And for me, that looks like, I just try to spend, a little bit of time every day, either writing or, even just answering emails or writing emails to my agent, or, looking at what I can do to, market my book that I have out there. So I would just encourage, our listeners and viewers, who are creatives to try to resist those two extremes, to try to resist pressuring yourself too much to do, to do or be or produce whatever. But at the same time, like if a creative practice has been life-giving for you, to see if you can maybe incorporate that into your new normal, and even if it's just a few minutes each day.
That's excellent advice. So in the midst of all this, you have been creative since you did come up with this new book. So,
yeah. But it did take me a lot longer than I expected. It did look a little bit different. I mean, at first we were like, oh, we could get this done by the end of next week. And it was, we're probably more like 4 weeks, but.
Well, everything takes longer than you expect it to. And when it's the first time that you're going through a process too, that just adds to it. So I don't think you should feel too bad about that. So would you like to share with us?
Okay, there we go. Okay, so this is called a family prayer. Father, thank you for today. Thank you for the world you made. Whether we played in the sunshine or looked through our windows at the rain, we thank you. You made both the sunshine and the rain, and they are both beautiful. Jesus, thank you for today. Thank you for the food we ate. Whether we got to eat our favorite things or had to eat what someone else chose, whether we had more than we could eat or not as much as we wanted, we thank you. You give us everything we have, and it is all good. Spirit, thank you for today. Thank you for the ones we love. Whether we can hug them tight or have to send kisses from far away, we thank you. You are happy with us when we are together and sad with us when we miss each other. Father, please watch over our home tonight. Give us good rest and peaceful dreams. If we wake up scared in the middle of the night, help us know you are near. And please be with those who have no home to sleep in. Jesus, please bless our bodies. Keep us healthy and help us grow strong. If we get sick or hurt, help us to know that you are the great doctor. And please be with those who are sick or hurt today. Spirit, please help us be loving. Help us speak kind words and think kind thoughts. When we mess up and hurt each other, help us to forgive and be forgiven. And please show your love to those who need it. Father, please watch over our world. Jesus, please watch over our home. Spirit, please watch over our hearts. Thank you. We love you. Amen.
That's so beautiful.
Thank you.
And I love the illustrations.
Yeah, aren't they great? I think they might have a future there.
So we'll definitely include a link to that book in the notes for the interview. So
awesome. Yep, it's just available on Amazon at the moment, but we'll see if we get it on other platforms then.
Well, Sarah, thanks so much for sharing your book and for spending some time with us to share your thoughts on what we're all going through. And best of luck to you and your family. I hope that you continue to make it well one day at a time.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Brian.